Welcome dear students. In my today's lecture, I am going to discuss with you anterior and posterior pituitary hormones. Myself Dr. Padmaja Kore, Assistant Professor, Department of Pharmacology, Progressive Education Societies, Modern College of Pharmacy, Nigdi, Pune. Before we'll go to the introduction of hormones, let us have a look at pathway for the hormone production. Hormone production starts with a sensory input from the environment, which will give inputs to the central nervous system, which is also known as neuroendocrine origin of the signals. Under the influence of the input from the environment, central nervous system will stimulate hypothalamus for the release of or production of certain releasing factors. These releasing factors will act on anterior pituitary as a first target, and anterior pituitary and posterior pituitary both will receive the input from the releasing factors. And under the influence of those stimuli, these will produce several hormones which will act on the secondary targets. Secondary targets will produce the ultimate hormones which will act on the ultimate targets, including many tissues of the body, muscles, liver, reproductive organs, and so on. Now, pituitary gland, as we all know, is divided in two portions, that is anterior pituitary gland and posterior pituitary glands. Both the parts under the influence of hypothalamus will secrete different hormones. Posterior pituitary gland secretes ADH and oxytocin. ADH and oxytocin will have different effects onto the different system. Antidiuretic hormone will act onto the kidney tubules, whereas oxytocin acts on the uterine muscles or mammary glands. Now coming to the anterior pituitary gland is responsible for production of thyroid stimulating hormone, which will act on the thyroid gland. It will be responsible for production of adrenocorticotropic hormone acting onto the adrenal cortex. It will be producing follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, which will act on testes and ovaries. Growth hormone, which will act on entire body. Prolactin, abbreviated as PRL, will act on mammary glands. And endorphins, which will act onto the pain receptors into the brain. So these are various hormones produced by anterior and posterior pituitary glands. Now let us have an introduction of growth hormone, which is also known as the somatotrophin. Growth hormone is produced by somatotrophic cells of the anterior lobe. It stimulates most of the cells but target bone and skeletal muscles. Growth hormone stimulates the liver and other tissues to secrete insulin-like growth factor, which is also known as IGF-1 or somatomedin. IGF-1 stimulates proliferation of chondrocytes. Chondrocytes are nothing but cartilage cells. By action onto the chondrocytes, bone growth is stimulated. Growth hormone stimulates cell growth, replication and protein synthesis through release of IGF-1. Direct action of growth hormone promotes lipolysis, that is breakdown of lipid molecules, to encourage the use of fats as a fuel and inhibits the glucose uptake. Growth hormone release is stimulated by growth hormone releasing hormone, and the secretion of growth hormone is inhibited by growth hormone inhibiting hormone. Now let us have a look at various effects of growth hormone on various systems, how it is released, and a negative feedback mechanism. Hypothalamus secretes growth hormone inhibiting hormone and growth hormone releasing hormone, and these trophic or control hormones are acted on anterior pituitary. Anterior pituitary, under the influence of this controlling hormone, will release growth hormone. Growth hormone has some direct effect on liver and other tissues, and also it is imparting some anti-insulin kind of actions. Now let us have a look at the direct effect on liver and other tissues. By acting onto the liver and other tissues, it will produce insulin-like growth factor, which will promote the actions on skeletal muscles and extraskeletal muscles. So these effects which are imparted on skeletal muscles and extraskeletal effects are known as indirect effects. Skeletal muscles will increase the cartilage formation rate and skeletal growth under the influence of growth hormone, and some extraskeletal effects are achieved like increased protein synthesis and cell growth and proliferation. Direct effects of growth hormone, that is anti-insulin actions, involve effect on fat metabolism and carbohydrate metabolism. By acting onto the fat stores, it will promote the lipolysis, and by acting onto the carbohydrate, the products of carbohydrate metabolism are increased blood sugar and other anti-insulin effects. Now coming to the next hormone, that is thyroid stimulating hormone, TSH, or it is also known as thyrotrophin. It travels to the thyroid gland, which is known as a target cell, where it stimulates the release of thyroid hormones in response to low temperature, stress and pregnancy. Thyrotrophin releasing hormone from hypothalamus promotes the release of thyroid stimulating hormone. Rising blood levels of thyroid hormones act on the pituitary and hypothalamus to block the release of thyroid stimulating hormone. Now just have a look at various cells present in thyroid gland and parathyroid gland. In this diagram, both the sections are shown. Thyroid gland, it is having follicular cells and parafollicular cells. In case of parathyroid gland, there is a presence of oxyphil cells, which is shown by the faint pink color. There are chief cells, which are shown by the dark pink color, and there is a capsule, a fibrous coat, and these red colored coatings are blood vessels. Thyroid gland contains numerous thyroid follicles that release two hormones, that is T3 and T4. Thyroid hormones are held in storage but eventually attached to thyroid binding globulins. Thyroid hormones regulate metabolism. They diffuse into target cell and bind to mitochondria and thereby increases the production of energy. Thyroid hormones impart a very important roles like increase in the protein synthesis, they promote glycolysis, they promote gluconeogenesis and glucose uptake. The main important function of thyroid hormone is normal growth, as they stimulate release of growth hormone from the anterior pituitary. Thyroid hormones are very important for the development of brain cells. See cells in between the thyroid follicles, they will produce the hormone calcitonin. The main role of calcitonin is to decrease the concentration of calcium in the blood, where most of it is stored in the bones. It stimulates osteoblast activity. Calcitonin opposes the effects of parathyroid hormones, which will tend to increase the blood calcium levels. Calcitonin lowers blood calcium levels by supporting osteoclast activity in the bones and increasing the amount of calcium excreted in the urine. parathyroid hormone reduces the urine calcium. So the action of calcitonin and parathyroid hormone are opposite to each other. Now let us have a look at the functioning of the thyroid glands. Now first, there is a stimulus, for example low body temperature. It causes the hypothalamus to secrete thyrotrophin releasing hormone, which we call it as TRH, which acts on the anterior pituitary. Now after the release of TRH, thyrotrophic cells in the anterior pituitary are stimulated to release TSH. Now the TSH which is released will act on the cells of thyroid gland. Follicular cells are stimulated to release thyroid hormone. Now the thyroid hormone which is released will stimulate target cells to increase metabolic activities, resulting in overall increase in basal body temperature. And last, increased TH levels causes heat production in the target cell. That increase in temperature is detected by the hypothalamus as it monitors body temperature or blood temperature and inhibits the secretion of TRH by the hypothalamus. So this action, which will result in suppression of release of TRH from the hypothalamus, is known as negative feedback mechanism. Thyroid hormone also blocks the interaction of TRH from hypothalamus and anterior pituitary to prevent the formation of thyroid stimulating hormone. Now the blue colored arrows will show the stimulatory effect, that is known as a positive feedback mechanism, and orange color is shown, that is known as a negative feedback mechanism or inhibitory mechanism. Low levels of T3 and T4 or low metabolic rate stimulates the release of TRH. TRH carried by hypophyseal portal veins into the anterior pituitary stimulates TSH. TSH stimulates thyroid follicular cells, and thyroid follicular cells will produce T3 and T4 released into the blood. Now these T3 and T4 will produce their action, and their high levels in the blood will give negative feedback mechanism. This is the same explained in another way. Hypothalamus releasing TRH, acting onto the anterior pituitary releasing TSH, acting on thyroid will release thyroxine, and their levels or increased levels into the blood will stimulate the inhibition to anterior pituitary to release TSH and inhibition to hypothalamus to release TRH. So this is, in other words, is called as a negative feedback mechanism. Now coming to the parathyroid glands. Parathyroid glands are 4 or so masses of tissues embedded posteriorly in each lateral mass of thyroid gland. It is most important regulator of calcium and phosphorus concentration in the extracellular fluids. The effect imparted by parathyroid hormone is opposite to that of the effect of calcitonin. The major role of parathyroid hormone is to stimulate osteoclast, which increases blood calcium levels. Parathyroid hormones causes reabsorption of calcium from kidneys, so it is not excreted in the urine. It also stimulates the synthesis of calcitriol, which is the active form of vitamin D, which increases calcium absorption from small intestine. Now let us concentrate onto the diagram. Yellow colored circles are calcium ions, and Violet colored circles are parathyroid hormone molecules. Low calcium levels are detected by the parathyroid gland. It means if there is low blood calcium, parathyroid gland will sense that low levels of calcium. It will release parathyroid hormone PTH. It is secreted into the blood stream. Now, the target organs that will respond to parathyroid hormone or its effects include bones, kidney and intestine. In case of bones, osteoclast will reabsorb bone tissue. Kidney retains calcium and promotes activation of inactive form of vitamin D to calcitriol, an active form of vitamin D. Small intestine will increase the absorption of more calcium under the influence of calcitriol. So these are various effects imparted by the calcium on bone, kidney and intestine. But if there are more calcium levels in the blood, it will inhibit parathyroid hormone release. So this is called as a positive and negative feedback mechanism. Now coming to the next, that is adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH or corticotrophin. It travels to the adrenal gland, a target cell, where it stimulates the release of corticosteroids such as cortisol in the adrenal cortex. Corticotrophin releasing hormone from the hypothalamus promotes the release of ACTH in a daily rhythm. There are some internal and some external factors such as fever, hypoglycemia and stressors can trigger the release of CRH, that is corticotrophin releasing hormone. And there is one more gland, that is adrenal gland. These are located superior to each kidney. Each adrenal gland has a pyramid shape. Each adrenal gland has an inner medulla and outer cortex. Just have a look at anatomical position of adrenal gland. The gland is of right adrenal gland and left adrenal gland. It is located on the top of kidney. Adrenal cortex. It makes and secretes over 30 different steroid hormones, collectively known as corticosteroids. The adrenal cortex has three regions or three different zones that each make a major type of hormones. Cortex secretes mineralocorticoids, for example, aldosterone. The main role of aldosterone is to stimulate the kidney to reabsorb sodium if blood pressure drops. It also secretes potassium. Glucocorticoids, example cortisol. These hormones help you to cope up with the stress. Cortisol increases the level of sugar in the blood by stimulating the production of glucose from fats and protein, and the process is also known as gluconeogenesis. It means synthesis of glucose. It also reduces swelling. In larger doses, cortisol inhibits the immune system. It also stimulates gluconeogenesis, mobilization of free fatty acids, glucose sparing, and also acts as anti-inflammatory agent. Then gonadocorticoids, for example, testosterone, estrogens and progesterones. Adrenal gland also makes small amounts of sex hormones, mostly androgens, that is testosterone, and lesser amount of estrogens and progesterones. Scientists not certain what role these hormones play, but know that when over secreted they can cause problems. Adrenal medulla. It secretes hormones like epinephrine and norepinephrine, when stimulated by sympathetic neurons of ANS, both epinephrine and norepinephrine contribute to body's fight or flight response, just like a sympathetic nervous system. They have the same effect as direct stimulation by the sympathetic nervous system, but their effects are longer lasting. Norepinephrine is similar to epinephrine, but it is less effective in the conversion of glycogen to glucose. The rate is around 75 to 80% for epinephrine and 25 to 30% for norepinephrine. Now let us have a look at stress mechanism. Stress will give some nerve signals to the spinal cord, and a spinal cord with the help of nerve cell or neuron will give inputs to the adrenal medulla, and adrenal medulla will release epinephrine and norepinephrine. So short term stress responses are achieved, like glycogen is broken down to glucose, which will be responsible for increase in the blood glucose, increased blood pressure, increased rate of breathing, increased metabolic rate, change in the blood flow pattern leading to increased alertness and decreased digestive and kidney activity. So this is all the effects mediated by adrenal medulla. Now this stress will stimulate hypothalamus to release some of the releasing hormones also, which will act onto the anterior pituitary to release ACTH. ACTH will act on adrenal cortex. Adrenal cortex, as we have already discussed, will be responsible for the release of mineralocorticoid as well as glucocorticoid. So the action imparted by mineralocorticoid and glucocorticoid are categorized as long-term stress responses. Mineralocorticoids are responsible for some effects like retention of sodium ions by water and kidneys. Means sodium ions and water is retained by the kidneys. Another action imparted by the mineralocorticoid is increased blood volume and blood pressure. Long-term stress response by glucocorticoids include protein and fat breakdown and converted to glucose, leading to increased blood glucose. Immune system may also be suppressed due to the action on glucocorticoids. So overall response to the stress is mediated by adrenal medulla with the help of epinephrine and norepinephrine, and also it is mediated by adrenal cortex by the release of mineralocorticoid and glucocorticoid. This is the HPA axis. Hypothalamus acting onto the anterior pituitary with the help of some releasing hormones, and anterior pituitary will act onto the ultimate target to release the hormone, and negative feedback is associated with high levels of the hormones into the blood. Stressors will release CRH. CRH will act onto the anterior pituitary to release trophic hormone, adrenocorticotrophic hormone, which will act onto the cortex to release a cortisol, which will ultimately act on liver, fat, muscles and lymphocytes. So this is the same example of negative feedback mechanism. Then coming to the follicle stimulating hormone, it It travels to the gonads, that is target cells, and stimulates sperm or egg cell production and maturation and estrogen secretion. Gonadotrophin releasing hormone from hypothalamus promotes the release of follicle stimulating hormone during and after puberty. Next is luteinizing hormone. It travels to the ovaries in females and stimulates ovulation, maturation of follicles together with FSH, and stimulates corpus luteum to secrete progesterone. In males, LH travels to the testes, which is known as a target cell, to stimulate secretion of testosterone. It is also referred to as interstitial cell stimulating hormone, ICSH. Now let us have a look at the release and actions of FSH and LH along with their negative feedback mechanisms. Estradiol, which is abbreviated as E2, it modulates hypothalamic neural excitability that ultimately regulates production, energy balance, temperature, circadian rhythm and stress. Estradiol is known to both inhibit and stimulate the release of GnRH, that is gonadotrophin releasing hormone, and LH as well as FSH, and it stimulates the sexual behavior. Hypothalamus, after releasing gonadotrophin releasing hormone, will be responsible for the release of FSH and LH from the pituitary gland, and LH will act onto the Leydig cells for the production of testosterone. High levels of testosterone will be responsible for the negative feedback mechanism, which will give inputs to the anterior pituitary, as well as it will suppress the hypothalamus for the release of gonadotrophin releasing hormone. FSH will act onto the Sertoli cells. FSH stimulates Sertoli cells for spermatogenesis. So, more levels of FSH again will give negative feedback to the pituitary and also hypothalamus for the release of trophic hormones. Next is prolactin. It travels to the mammary glands or target cells and stimulates the development of mammary glands to produce the milk. Prolactin releasing hormone from the hypothalamus stimulates the release of prolactin. Prolactin inhibiting hormone from the hypothalamus inhibits the release of prolactin. Blood levels rise toward the end of pregnancy. Suckling stimulates PRH release and encourages continued milk production. So this was all about the hormones of anterior pituitary gland. Now let us have a introduction to the hormones of posterior pituitary gland, that is also known as a neurohypophysis. The first and important hormone that is produced by the posterior pituitary gland is antidiuretic hormone, that is abbreviated as ADH, or we also call it as vasopressin. It is secreted by neurons of the supraoptic nucleus in the hypothalamus. Signals collecting ducts of the kidneys to reabsorb more water and constrict the blood vessels, which will be responsible for higher blood pressure and thus counters blood pressure drop caused by dehydration to other reasons. Hypothalamus will secrete the hormones, or it will release some trophic hormones which will act onto the posterior pituitary, and posterior pituitary will secrete oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone. So under the influence of hypothalamus, posterior pituitary will be producing oxytocin, which has a major role in the uterine muscles and mammary glands, and also it is producing ADH, which will have a direct action onto the kidney tubules. This diagram explains the release and action of antidiuretic hormones onto the kidney cells and also negative feedback mechanism. Sodium concentration in the plasma, if increases, it will be responsible for increased osmolarity of the fluids, which will stimulate osmoreceptors in the hypothalamus, which will give input or stimulatory input to the posterior pituitary gland for the release of ADH. ADH is anti-diuretic hormone which will target collecting ducts of the kidney, and overall effect achieved is increased water reabsorption, resulting into the plasma volume increasing and reduction into the osmolarity, and also results in the flow of scant urine. Now, increase in the plasma volume and decrease into the osmolarity will give negative feedback input to the osmoreceptors in the hypothalamus for further stimulation. Next is oxytocin. It is made by neurons of paraventricular nucleus of the hypothalamus. It stimulates the smooth muscles of uterus to contract, inducing a labor. It stimulates myoepithelial cells of a breast to contract, which releases milk from the breast when nursing. It stimulates maternal behavior. In males, it stimulates muscle contraction in the prostate gland to release a semen during sexual activity. Now, this diagram explains the overall actions of oxytocin. It mediates some of the emotional components like anxiolysis, positive mood, passive stress coping, and trust. It is responsible for some social behaviors like maternal behavior, maternal aggression, pair bonding, and sexual behavior. It mediates some of the cognitive functions like social memory, olfactory memory, and spatial memory, and also it imparts some of the neuroendocrine functions like attenuation of HPA axis responses, local amino acid, and neuroendocrine release. It is responsible for autoregulation like morphological plasticity, auto excitation during birth, and suckling. So these are all some of the important functions which are offered by the oxytocin. Coming to the pancreas, the location is along the lower curvature of the small intestine, that is duodenum. It contains both exocrine and endocrine cells. The exocrine portion of a pancreas will secrete digestive enzymes into the duodenum via pancreatic duct. The endocrine portion has clusters of endocrine cells within the pancreas called as pancreatic islets or islets of Langerhans. It will include alpha cells and beta cells. Alpha cells are known to secrete glucagon, whereas beta cells will secrete insulin. Glucagon, the main function of glucagon is to increase the level of glucose in the blood by stimulating the liver for breakdown of glycogen into the glucose molecules during fasting or starvation. Insulin lowers the blood glucose level by increasing the rate of glucose uptake and utilization. Glucagon raises blood glucose by increasing the rate of glycogen breakdown and glucose manufacture by the liver. Now let us have a look at an anatomical location of the pancreas. It is located along the small intestine or curvature of the small intestine, that is the duodenum part. It will have some common bile duct. Head of the pancreas is shown. This is the body of pancreas, and this is a tail portion, and a small part of the pancreas is taken for the magnification. It will show the presence of islets of Langerhans, and also some exocrine cells are shown in this particular section. Now let us look at the homeostatic mechanism which is offered by the pancreas. Now, stimulus is rising blood glucose level. For example, if the blood glucose level is increased, that is after eating a carbohydrate rich meal, it will high blood glucose level, it will be responsible for achieving high blood glucose levels. So that will be sensed by the beta cells of pancreas to release insulin into the blood. That insulin will act onto the body cells to take up more glucose, or it will stimulate the liver that takes up glucose and stores it as a glycogen. Body cells take up more glucose will be responsible for blood glucose level declines to set a point stimulus or insulin release diminishes. So this is the way by which the insulin act. It will just increase a glucose uptake by the body cells. Now, if the stimulus is declining blood glucose level after skipping a meal, if there is a decline into the blood glucose level, in that case, alpha cells of the pancreas are stimulated to release a glucagon into the blood. This glucagon will act onto the liver to break down the glycogen and release glucose in the blood. This blood glucose level increases to a set point and stimulus for glucagon release diminishes. So this is the way by which glucagon acts and insulin acts, and overall they are responsible for maintaining homeostasis, that is normal blood glucose level, and the normal level of the blood glucose is 90 milligrams per 100 ml.